It was a sunny spring day in the town of Lakeside, Washington. 17-year-old Sarah walked into the hair salon, excited for a new look. She was greeted by her regular stylist, Amanda. "Hey, Sarah, what are we doing today?" Amanda asked cheerfully. "I want to go really short, like a pixie cut," Sarah said eagerly. "I'm ready for a big change." Amanda looked hesitant. "That's quite a bit shorter than what you have now. Are you sure?" "Absolutely," Sarah said. "Let's go for it." Amanda sectioned off another part of Sarah's long blonde hair and began cutting. She was being extra careful, as Sarah had requested a very short pixie cut. Amanda slowed down her cutting, carefully checking the length as she trimmed away inches of Sarah's hair. She wanted to make sure she didn't cut off too much. As the trimmed locks fell to the floor around the salon chair, Sarah grinned enthusiastically at her reflection. Amanda smiled back, pleased that her client was happy so far with the dramatic change. Amanda continued working slowly and meticulously, cutting tiny bits at a time. She wanted to make sure each section was perfectly even before moving on. As more blonde locks fell to the floor around the salon chair, Sarah grinned enthusiastically at her reflection. The new pixie cut was starting to take shape, and Sarah loved how light and airy her hair felt. Amanda smiled, pleased that her client was happy so far with the dramatic change. She sectioned off another part of Sarah's hair and began cutting again, being extra cautious. As she trimmed away more inches, Sarah grinned excitedly at her reflection, eager to see the final short style take form. Suddenly, the salon door opened and a client walked in for her appointment. Amanda turned to greet the woman, momentarily distracted. When she turned back to Sarah, she gasped. While turned away, she had let the scissors slip and cut off a large chunk in the back of Sarah's hair. "No!" Sarah screamed, seeing the uneven patch in the mirror. She put her hands to her mouth and began crying. "My hair! You ruined it!" she wailed. "I'm so sorry," Amanda cried. "I don't know what happened. I cut off too much when I got distracted." She grabbed a comb and tried to fix the uneven spot, but the damage was done. Sarah kept screaming and sobbing, completely distraught over the botched pixie cut. Amanda felt awful about the mistake. She tried to console Sarah. "I'm so sorry. I know how excited you were for this cut. I promise I'll fix it for you." Sarah was inconsolable, staring at the jagged, short patch on the back of her head and crying. Amanda took a deep breath and said, "Sarah, please try to calm down. I know how to blend this so it won't look as bad. The rest of the pixie is done beautifully. Let me even this part out for you, and I'll add some long layers in the back to cover it up." Sarah choked back sobs and said, "Are you sure you can fix this?" Amanda nodded. "I promise I'll do everything I can to make this right." Amanda had Sarah turn away from the mirror, so she couldn't obsess over the uneven spot. She worked methodically, blending the longer layers on top into the short patch in back, disguising the mistake. After careful cutting and styling, Amanda handed Sarah a mirror. When she turned back to Sarah, she gasped. While turned away, she had let the scissors slip and cut off a large chunk in the back of Sarah's hair. "No!" Sarah screamed, seeing the uneven patch in the mirror. She put her hands to her mouth and began crying. "My hair! You ruined it!" she wailed. "I'm so sorry!" Amanda cried. "I don't know what happened. I cut off too much when I got distracted." She grabbed a comb and tried to fix the uneven spot, but the damage was done. Sarah kept screaming and sobbing, completely distraught over the botched pixie cut. Amanda felt awful about the mistake. She tried to console Sarah. "I'm so sorry. I know how excited you were for this cut. I promise I'll fix it for you." Amanda took a deep breath and said, "Sarah, I know you're upset, but please let me try to fix this. I have an idea." Sarah was still sobbing, but looked up at Amanda with red, teary eyes. "How can you possibly fix this?" she choked out. Amanda put a gentle hand on Sarah's shoulder. "Just trust me. I'm going to even this out for you." She grabbed the clippers and turned them on. Starting at the nape of Sarah's neck, she began buzzing away what was left of her hair. Section by section, she sheared the remaining locks until Sarah's whole head was completely shorn. Sarah stared wide-eyed into the mirror, running her hands over the soft fuzz covering her scalp. I can't believe you just shaved my whole head," she whispered. She started screaming and crying so hard that she started hitting the barber chair she was sitting on. "How could you do this to me?" she wailed between sobs. "My hair! My beautiful hair!" Amanda tried to calm her down. "Sarah, please listen to me. I know this is shocking, but it will grow back. I shaved your head so we could start over and fix the botched cut." But Sarah was inconsolable. She kept screaming and hitting the chair, tugging at the short fuzz on her head in despair. Big tears rolled down her cheeks as she mourned the loss of her long locks. "You ruined everything?" she cried. "I didn't want a shaved head. I'll look like a freak." Amanda felt awful seeing Sarah so distraught. She put a hand on her shoulder. "I'm so sorry. I was only trying to help even it out. Please give it some time. As your hair grows out, I'll shape it into a proper pixie cut." Sarah showed Amanda's hand away, still sobbing into her hands. Amanda sighed sadly, wishing she could go back in time and undo the botched haircut. "I will report you. Don't forget me," Sarah screamed through her tears. As she continued wailing, other stylists and customers in the salon stopped what they were doing and turned to see what was happening. Sarah's cries echoed through the room, drawing everyone's attention. Some people whispered to each other, wondering what had gone so wrong. Others shook their heads in sympathy as they watched the distraught girl clutching her shorn head. A few customers got up from their seats and hurried out of the salon, not wanting to get caught up in the uncomfortable scene. The salon owner came rushing over, alarmed by Sarah's hysterical sobs. "What on earth is going on here?" she demanded. Amanda tried to explain through her own tears how she had accidentally cut off too much of Sarah's hair, but Sarah was inconsolable, still wailing at the top of her lungs about how Amanda had ruined everything. The owner apologized profusely and promised Sarah a full refund. But Sarah just kept crying loudly, mourning the loss of her long locks as the crowded salon looked on awkwardly. Sarah continued sobbing and screaming as the salon owner tried to calm her down. The owner apologized profusely, offering Sarah free services to make up for the terrible experience. But Sarah was too upset to listen. "I want my hair back!" she cried. "Make my hair grow back now!" The other stylists looked on awkwardly, not sure what to do. Some customers were filming the dramatic scene on their phones. "Please, let's talk about this calmly," the owner urged. "We will do everything we can to make this right." But Sarah shoved the owner away, jumping up from the stylist chair. "I'm getting out of here," she yelled, grabbing her bag. She ran out of the salon, face soaked with tears. The few remaining long locks flew behind her as she raced down the street. "My life is ruined!" Sarah screamed as she ran. She couldn't bear to go home and show her family the shorn hair. Sarah ended up at a park, collapsed on a bench, still sobbing into her hands. She rubbed the short fuzz on her head, and her tears started anew. People in the park turned to stare, whispering about the hysterical bald girl. But Sarah didn't care anymore who saw her. She sat on that park bench all afternoon, crying, mourning the loss of her hair. Her pixie-cut dreams had turned into a nightmare. Sarah looked up through tear-filled eyes as people began to gather around the park bench. To her surprise, several women were complimenting her shaved head. "What a stylish cut," one woman said. "It's so edgy and modern," said another. Sarah just stared at them in disbelief. "You think this looks good?" she croaked out. The women nodded enthusiastically. One said, "My husband would never let me shave my head, but you're so brave to do it." Another woman chimed in. "I wish I could shave my head too, but my husband hates anything too alternative." The women kept fawning over Sarah's buzzed hair, reaching out to feel the soft fuzz. Sarah managed a small smile, realizing her dramatic new look was attracting fans. Just then, a stern-looking man approached. "Margaret," he barked at his wife. "Get away from that girl this instant. No wife of mine will be idolizing some fool child's shaved head." The woman looked down meekly and backed away. Another husband dragged his protesting wife from the crowd. One by one, the women dispersed, scolded by angry husbands refusing to let their wives emulate Sarah's style. Sarah sat alone again on the bench. She took a deep breath and ran a hand over her stubbly head. Maybe this ultra-short cut wasn't so bad after all. The stern-looking man grabbed his wife's hand and pulled her away from the park bench where Sarah was sitting.